Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity, where it is time now for some more polls, more Star Trek episode polls. So this video is something I've done several times before. If you're not familiar with my channel, I review episodes of Star Trek, but I create polls for you, the viewer, to vote on, and I shall review the episode that wins each poll for each show. So I do one for the original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise, and I'll review each of the episodes. And I will say, sometimes I take a really long time to get to these episodes. Like, I think I did the Enterprise review like 2 months after I did my poll. However, I will say this time, or at least the plan, is to get all of them done this month, so you won't have to wait as long to see the results of the poll or my review, depending on which episode I review. So, how I decide which episodes will be in the poll is I use the random episode generator to randomly generate me an episode title, and those will be 5 options, so I'll do 5 for each of the shows. So let's go ahead and start, and we'll start, of course, with Star Trek, the original series. So the first option, Doomsday Machine. Unfortunately, I have already reviewed that, so that, in fact, is not an option. The Changeling. This is one I almost reviewed for my Patreon polls because it tied in one of my Patreon polls. And this is one of my favorite episodes of the original series. I absolutely love this. It's really intense, really freaky, really scary, much better than the motion picture, which ripped the plot from this episode off. So that is your first option. Next option, Bread and Circuses. I just watched this for my season 2 review, and this is a silly episode where there are like Romans, and it's really stupid. Anyway, next, The Paradise Syndrome. I haven't watched this one yet, but this is a season 3 episode where that is actually like really racist towards Native Americans. It treats them like barbarians, and Kirk, like they think Kirk is some magical powered man, and he falls in love with this woman. They stone him to death for some reason. I don't know. It's a really terrible episode. Next is Obsession. This episode put me to sleep. I never really saw the point of it. I thought it was boring and a waste of time. It's silly. It's a silly little episode. Next option is going to be Charlie X, because Charlie is my darling, my darling, my darling. Now, this episode also sucks and features a creepy young boy with godlike powers who tortures people, and we're supposed to feel sad for him when he is banished from the ship. He was killing people, ripping out their mouths and turning them into lizards. What fuck are you sad for him? And he was a creepy asshole. Anyway, not a good episode. If you want me to review that, I can certainly do that for you. So, those are our original series options. So now let us go back to the Next Generation and see what we got in store for Star Trek The Next Generation. So first option on that is going to be Pen Pal Season 2 episode, which I think is really lackluster for a Prime Directive episode, because I never really bought Data's friendship with this young girl, but apparently they've been communicating, long distance, and her world's gonna explode and everyone's gonna die, and Data's saying we should save him because what about the Prime Directive? I don't think it was a really good episode, and I think if a recollection, it was actually kind of a subplot too. Anyway, The Bonding, another episode that I felt was kind of lackluster, mainly because they never followed up on it. A random ensign that we'd never heard of dies, but at least they actually care about her death, because there's a young boy that, her son that survived and is trying to grieve, but this alien shows up pretending to be the mother and is like, why don't you, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I think the intentions behind this episode was good, but I don't quite think they sold it. Anyway, Next option, A Matter of Honor. Another season 2 episode. I think this episode's overrated, to be honest. This is one of their early Klingon episodes where Riker goes on the Klingon ship because it's a bit goofy. But it was somewhat interesting if I wasn't so sick of the Klingons. Anyway, next episode is Aquiel Unare. Well, Aquiel. This is an episode a lot of people do not like that I always have liked. I don't know. I just have a soft spot for this episode. I really liked it when it first came out, so I have fond memories of it. It is a bit goofy. The actress who plays LaForge's love interest in this episode is a terrible actress, but at least Geordi gets some, finally. Anyway, next episode, Schisms, the 6th season episode. That's kind of creepy, but I actually think it's really boring. It's kind of creepy, but it's mostly boring. So, those are your options for the next generation. Alright, so next we go into Deep Space Nine. Territory first option will be You're My Destiny, or Destiny. I actually like this episode. I think this has been underrated. This is when these Cardassian scientists come on the station. One of them hits on O'Brien, but then Kira thinks that there's this prophecy that says it's going to bring about the doom, but they completely misinterpret the prophecy. I found it kind of interesting. Anyway, next is Who Mourns for Morn. I have a soft spot for this episode. I thought it was quite funny, even though, I mean, it's about Morn, but it's not really. He's not really in it because, of course, he can't talk. But it's about he fakes his death, and Quark thinks he's dead and tries to, like, steal this money, and the people who were in the heist with him are like, I don't know. It's one of the better Quark episodes, I think, because Quark episodes tend to not be very good. Anyway, next option is Apocalypse Rising. I don't believe I reviewed this episode. I'm pretty sure I haven't yet. Season 5 premiere, which is, it's kind of Klingon doing the Klingon, where Cisco, O'Brien, and Odo go undercover as Klingons and try to expose Gowron as a changeling, and of course it's not him. And it's okay. It's an okay episode. Also probably overrated. Next is A Man Alone, a terrible episode. I think I put this in my top 5 worst episodes of Deep Space Nine. It is the third, or it says 4th episode, but really if you count in the series 1 episode, it's the 3rd episode of the show, so they didn't really know what they're doing, and they tried to introduce Odo, and they just, it was such a stupid murder mystery, and everyone's like the pitchforks and torches to trying to kill Odo because they think because he's a freak. I don't know. It sucked. I didn't buy it at all. So next option for Deep Space Nine is Rivals, one of the worst episodes of the show. An absolute travesty. I'm surprised it didn't make my top 10 worst episodes of all of Star Trek. It's when Prince Humperdinck from Princess Bride becomes Quark's rival and sets up a rivalry bar. It was just such a ridiculous, dumb, uninteresting, boring. Is like one of the worst possible episodes. So, if you want me to trash that, I can certainly review that for you. Next, we go over to Voyager, and the options are going to be Arthur. A lot of people like this episode. I've heard some people say it's like one of their favorite episodes. My sister despises this episode. She thinks it's absolutely terrible. I'm mixed on it. I think it's funny, but it does get ridiculous, and it's like this silly comedy, and then towards the end, it all of a sudden tries to be like Measure of the Man. It's like a Measure Man ripoff all of a sudden, which didn't seem at all earned. So I'm not huge on this episode. I think it is a bit of a mess, but I don't hate it quite as much as my sister does. Next episode is The Q and the Great, which I have already reviewed. It is, in fact, a terrible episode. Next episode, Friendship 1. another episode of Voyager I named as one of the worst. Well, it was the top 30 worst. 7th season episode where these, people blame this Federation or Starfleet probe for the destruction of the world when it's their own damn fault and they just don't know how to take any freaking personal responsibility, and they're being completely obtuse and thinking Voyager is trying to kill them at every turn when it's fucking obvious they're trying to help us. It's a very frustrating episode to watch because the guys are a bunch of idiots, and I don't buy that they would be this stupid. It's just there for plot contrivance. Anyway, next option is Extreme Risk. There's another episode my sister totally hated, which I just thought was okay. But B'Elanna is just suicidal out of nowhere. But season 5 did that a lot, just manifest character traits out of freaking nowhere. And then they have the Maylon, which are like Captain Planet villains. And it's like space race. It was a bit silly. I'm not a huge fan of this episode either. Next option is Bring the Fire. Cold Fire. Actually, an underrated episode in my opinion. And it's finally followed up, and the only follow-up to the Caretaker, where they run into the female version of the Caretaker, which is hinted at in the pilot episode. And I find this a really, really creepy episode. I kind of like it. Again, the female Caretakers are being really obtuse and thinking that Voyager killed her mate, which obviously they didn't. But other than that, I think it's a pretty good episode. Alright, and final option, One Small Step. I absolutely hate this episode. Is Brendan Braga's obsession with astronauts. I think it's boring as hell. It's like Chakotay finds the first module of this astronaut who went to Mars, or one of the first ones, and is here worshipping. It's just boring. I don't like it. Anyway, not very good episodes in that batch, but those are your options for Voyager. So now I go over the Enterprise, and to do that I use the random number generator to see what season I will get. This gives me season 2, and so choose the episode out of 26, and this gives me episode 26 of season 2, which I don't believe I reviewed. That is in fact The Expanse. Not the great TV show, but the episode that led into the Xindi arc, which I think it's mainly just a setup episode. It doesn't stand on its own, really. It's just there to get you pumped for season 3. But it's good. It's exciting, and I love season 3. So, Duras is kind of a dumbass and out of nowhere, but I still like it. Anyway, next option. Season 2 again. Alrighty. And it's going to be episode 6 this time of season 2, which is Marauders. Speaking of Klingons, this is a stupid Seven Samurai ripoff type episode where the Enterprise crew help these innocent villagers, and they say, oh, if we gotta teach them how to fight, because if we do the fighting for them, then the Klingons will keep coming back. Yet they actually do a lot of the fighting for them, so I wouldn't stop the Klingons from keep coming back. Whatever. It's a really dumb episode. As most episodes in season 2 were. Next option. Season 4. Okay, so season 4 is a special case because I reviewed pretty much every episode of season 4. There's only 3 or 4, but one's a 2-parter. So there's only 3 left I haven't reviewed. So number 3 is going to be Demons in Terra Prime. That will be your next option. That was the 2-parter towards the end. Some people consider it the real finale, but these are the Voyagers. Wasn't that bad, but I've already reviewed it. It is the episodes where there's these great groups of xenophobe racists on Earth who are racist towards the aliens, played by RoboCop, and they manufactured Son from Trip and DePaul, which is kind of dumb. So I wasn't a huge fan of this 2-parter, but whatever. Anyway, next option is going to be season 2 yet again. Back to season 2. Episode 16 this time. Season 2, episode 16, which is going to be Future Tense. I actually like this episode. I think this is a bit of an underrated episode. It's kind of like an X-Files Lost type episode where things happen but nothing really happens. But it's interesting. I love that they have the Dolians in here, and the Dolians kick ass, and it features one of my favorite moments of season 2 when they're like, let's get to the Vulcan ship, we gotta get to the Vulcan ship, and they get to the Vulcan ship, and it's completely on fire and destroyed. I love that moment so much. Anyway, yeah, so, I mean, it's not the best episode ever, but I like it. Anyway, final option for Enterprise. Season 2. Wow, this freaking generator loves season 2 today. 15, so that would be the episode that precedes it. Ceasefire, which is a meh. It's a definition of a meh episode. They're trying to negotiate between the Andorians and Vulcans, and Shran's first is obviously betraying him and working against his interests is obvious from the beginning. So it's kind of a meh episode. It's fine, I guess. Anyway, so those are indeedly do your options for my episode review polls. So be sure you can vote in these polls by checking out the description of this video. There will be a link to the straw poll website and there'll be a different poll, of course, for each Star Trek series. You can vote once in each of the 5 polls, and in several days, whenever it is I feel like making these videos, I shall close the poll and make a review for the winner. And if, of course, it is a tie, I reserve the right to pick which one out of the ones that tied I would like to review. So, there we are. Those are your options. Those are your polls. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for supporting the channel. Leave a like if you like to leave a like. You know, like that smash button. And subscribe if you like. That would be handy as well. And check out the reviews as I record them. Thanks so much for watching.